Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Josh, and here we like to take the fool's journey and we clamber towards truth. I actually don't have any more sayings that came from that series on Netflix, so I have a different one. This is just the explanation effect. All right, so you learn by teaching yourself. So, Olera bedra avo folklera de telesaisal. Again, that is Olera bedra avo folklera de telesaisal. And that is to learn better by explaining it to yourself. All right, this is going to be the continuation of my last video because I ended up cutting it short because that was more like consciousness based. This is more like how I believe people's brains actually function. And oddly enough, to me, it's a lot more like computers or quantum computers. Nonetheless, since this is going to be a little bit of a shorter video, 1:11 on the clock, I am actually going to read a little bit of the Gene Keys. I actually just started getting back into this. If you haven't ever heard of the Gene Keys, you might want to check into it. It's actually very, very fascinating. It's about epigenetics and how your consciousness can change and shape or reshape your genome to not only create a better physical being for yourself, but a different way of seeing life. So the Gene Key that I am actually going to read is the one I actually opened up to today, and it's called the 47th Gene Key, which is transmuting the past. Like I said, I'm only going to read a little bit of the excerpts of it. I do recommend actually getting the book and checking it out for yourself. But anyways, the 47th Gene Key, or the 47th shadow, is oppression. And what I'm going to read is just within the shadow side. All right. So very few people willingly confront their shadow archetypes in life. They do not want to stare down the barrel of the 47th shadow because the deeper they look, the deeper the rabbit hole seems to go. Thus, they simply live in denial or reaction to these unconscious fear patterns, not realizing that their outer lives are a direct reflection of this repression. To really look deeply into your fears is to undergo a major transmutation, one which eventually becomes cosmic and even mythic at the acidic level. As we shall see, but transmutations are not a comfortable business for people at the shadow level of consciousness, because to go through such an alchemical process, you have to let go of all definitions of who and what you are. What we humans don't realize is that the grail we seek is hiding beneath our fear. The very thing that terrifies you the most is your route to a higher evolution. This is why all mainstream religions are founded on the duality of good and evil. In keeping evil separate from good, you are actually denying the very part of our nature that will allow us to directly experience the divine. Evil is nothing but our fear manifested in the world. The programming partner of the 47th shadow is the 22nd shadow of dishonor. Your denial of your shadow is not only dishonoring yourself, but of life itself. So let me read that again because kind of stumbled. Your denial of your shadow is not only a dishonoring of yourself, but of life itself. If you cannot honor yourself, then you certainly cannot honor others. It means that you listen to someone through your own agenda, so you only hear what you want to hear. You carefully edit out all that junk DNA that you don't want to look at in yourself. This whole process between these two shadows create a biofeedback loop that conceals more and more repressed memories. We are literally reinforcing our self-limiting patterns. The ancients referred to this as the accumulation of karma. This has led to the belief that one can offset this negative karma by doing good deeds to accumulate positive karma. However, such practices never lead to true freedom because your unconscious shadows remain unaccepted and repressed. Religions such as Catholicism found a way to relieving the oppression through the process of confession. Still, confession simply lays the responsibility of your shadows onto an outer manifestation rather than assuming responsibility for your own deep inner process. Thus, the very urge of life to transmute itself is efficiently suppressed. This is going to be the last little bit. Maybe I'm going to read, or I'm just going to continue. The bottom line with the 47th shadow is that unless you face your own unique fear archetypes, you cannot open the portal of inner transmutation. This is the 47th gift. If you do not look your adversity square in the face and realize that it is the very manifestation of your own archetype, you miss the whole point and purpose of your life. Most of the world is still waiting to begin this process. Many who have begun it have become trapped in some therapeutic system that takes away their responsibility, thus further stalling the process. Facing your shadows is a lonely business, and it happens through the process of your natural destiny. It is the thing right in front of your nose that you try to avoid the most. It will not yield to being fixed. It will not be resolved through your mind, and it will come back at you again and again. It cannot be sidestepped or given over to another. Your suffering is a magic mirror. It's yours to own, to appreciate, and to accept. Only when you finally stop trying to avoid it can it show you its magic. Yeah, that is going to be all I'm going to read. Like I said, Gene Keys, Richard Rudd, well worth the read. I am just digging back into it, and I'm kind of using it kind of like a divination tool. So I just open up a random page, and then I read the partner, because if you were listening, it said the shadow partner of the 47th gene key was the 22nd gene key, which is dishonor. So there's always two that complement each other. Okay, so like I said, my last video was more about consciousness, and this one is a little more of how I believe the brain actually functions. So again, with my little whiteboards, we're going to be going over von Neumann architecture, because that's pretty much how I believe the brain actually pulls information, because it stores memory and data in the same area. And then quantum logic gates, even though, yes, in quantum mechanics, they have to be reversible, but the quantum logic gates enable you to process qubits into superposition or entanglement. Yeah, sorry about stumbling right there. Had to kind of recall back. Backpropagation is short for nonetheless, I'll get into that. Backpropagation, what I believe that is more like self-reflection. And then ceteris paribus, Bayesian probability, and then Bayesian inference. Far transfer perception is all right, yeah. Like I said, I'll get into all that. I don't know why I'm kind of stopping for some reason. And then the last little board is just real nice and short. And some of those we already went over, so. Again, I guess just gonna get into it. Give me a second, I'll set up my little whiteboard. All right, von Neumann architecture is a fundamental computer design model developed in 1945 by John von Neumann. It's based on the idea of storing program and instruction data in the same memory. It is the basis for most modern computers. Memory instructions and data are stored in the same memory space, allowing the CPU to fetch both using the same pathways. All components communicate using a shared bus system, but only one device can transmit at a time. Code can be self-modifying, and programs can write code to execute later. Data and instructions can be accessed in parallel, creating a bottleneck. Self-modifying code can make code flow difficult to document, and malware can damage other programs or the operating system. Quantum logic gates, they are reversible unitary matrix operations that manipulate qubit states into superposition or entanglement to process information in quantum computers, acting as fundamental building blocks for algorithms. They include single qubit and multi-qubit gates. Unlike classical gates, quantum gates perform operations on qubits. which can exist in a superposition of states. They are essential for creating quantum entanglement and manipulating phases. Single quantum gates, these operate on one qubit, such as the Pauli X or the NOT gate for flipping states, or the Hadamard H gate for creating superposition. Multi-gates, these involve interaction between qubits, such as the controlled NOT or the C-NOT gate, which is crucial for entanglement. Quantum gates must be reversible, meaning the original input can be recovered from the output. All right, and then backpropagation, short for backward propagation of errors, is a foundational algorithm in machine learning used to train artificial neural networks. It is the process by which a network learns, calculates the necessary adjustments for its weights, and reduces error to improve future predictions. The main goal is to minimize the loss function difference between prediction and actual outputs by updating the network's weights and base biases. It is crucial for training deep multi-layer neural networks, making deep learning feasible. It calculates the gradient slope of the error function with respect to each weight, moving backwards through the network. From the output layer to the input layer, it uses the chain rule of calculus to determine how much each node's weight contributed to the overall error. All right, I had to move you guys up a little bit, but the reason why I think backpropagation is just like self-reflection, because when you self-reflect, you pretty much can figure out ways to not do things or do things properly. And yeah, and that also goes hand in hand with the quantum logic gates, because even though they are for quantum computers, if you believe that the universe listens and you can manifest things in your life, one, you're already manipulating qubits then for superposition and entanglement. All right, and then you may wonder how you're able to do that, and that's what we're going to kind of get into now with ceteris paribus, the Bayesian probability and Bayesian inference. All right, ceteris paribus literally just means with other conditions remaining the same, or all other things being equal, or all else constant. It is a fundamental assumption used in economics to isolate the effect of one variable on another by holding all other potential influences constant. It simplifies complex scenarios to study specific cause and effect relationships. In predictive reasoning, it helps in making predictions about how one change leads to another, assuming no outside interference. And then Bayesian probability, I wrote down the little equation right here for you guys. It is based on Bayes' theorem, which provides a way to calculate the conditional probability of an event given new information. It is a framework for reasoning with uncertainty by updating prior beliefs with new evidence to arrive at posterior probabilities. In essence, Bayesian probability allows us to quantify our beliefs about a hypothesis and revise them as we gather more data. All right, as you can see right here, A is the hypothesis, and then B is equal to the new evidence in this. So just so you can know what the equation actually, how it reads. Okay, and then Bayesian inference. It is a core part of the Bayesian data analysis, or BDA, which uses Bayesian probability for a variety of tasks, including decision-making, experimental design, and model checking. In cognitive psychology, Bayesian inference is the process of forming beliefs about the causes of sensory data. It relies upon the combination of prior beliefs about these causes and beliefs about how these causes give rise to sensations. All right, I gotta move you guys back down real quick. 1441 on the clock. All right, now Far transfer perception. It is considered the holy grail of cognitive training. All right. Aiming to improve broad abilities like fluid intelligence. And fluid intelligence is the ability to think abstractly, reason quickly, and solve new, unfamiliar problems independently of acquired knowledge. It involves pattern recognition, mental adaptability, and working memory to tackle novel challenges. Okay, so FAR transfer refers to the ability to apply skills, strategies, or cognitive routines learned in one specific context to a completely different, unrelated, or novel domains. Researchers propose that FAR transfer can be categorized by examining specific dimensions of similarity between the training task and the target task. All right, we're almost done. Last board. All right, so noesis I already covered in a previous video, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on it. But noesis refers to the direct, immediate intellectual apprehension or understanding of knowledge, often described as pure intuition or the activity of the intellect. Rooted in Greek philosophy and psychology, it signifies the act of thinking, perceiving, or grasping fundamental truths without relying solely on rational analysis. Denotes a sense of immediate revelation or profound direct insight. In Platonian philosophy, represents the height of knowledge, intuitive understanding of eternal forms or ideas. Noesis is often contrasted with dianoia, which is discursive, logical thinking. All right. This next term, otrovert, doesn't really go hand in hand with how the brain operates. I just found this more or less to be my personality type, so I went ahead and threw it in here just in case if someone else is like this as well. Because an introvert is a personality style coined by psychiatrist Dr. Rami Kaminsky, describing someone who remains an outsider or observer in group settings, despite being social and warm and friendly. They possess little to no interest joining the crowd or adhering to social norms, characterized by high emotional independence and a lack of need for external group-based validation. Introverts are comfortable being on the margins of a group, never quite feeling like an insider, regardless of how welcome they are. They do not feel a sense of belonging to groups and prefer one-on-one authentic connections over conformist group behavior. Not a diagnostic label, but a personality framework for individuals who feel they belong only to themselves. So any of you guys who are also not completely an introvert nor an extrovert, you may be an otrovert. All right, so there's truthfully nothing wrong with you. That's mainly why I did throw it in here, because your brains might work differently, all right, than other people that you are surrounded around. So it's okay to feel like a black sheep, all right, because most of the time, most people are Harlechs. And again, that's why I put Harlechs there, is because it doesn't really relate into how I believe the brain works. Just put it underneath otrovert to kind of help solidify the reasoning. And again, I did cover Harlechs before, so it's just going to be a quick little excerpt of it. Anyways, Harlechs refer to the lowest, most materialistic level of human existence in Gnostic philosophy. They are spiritually blind, unaware of deeper realities, living a reactive life driven by survival instincts, anchored in material existence, entirely immersed in the physical world, sensory pleasures, and worldly concerns. And that's why if you're an introvert, don't worry too much about the masses, man, because they're too stuck in their worlds anyways. All right, gotta scroll you down a little bit. All right, lastly, nice little Latin phrase right here. Not gonna lie, this is actually a very good motto to live your life by a little bit, to try to protect your energy. And it is pronounced like stultus et loquacibus tempus non perdendum. Verba multis sed e poscis bene. Again, that is stultus et loquacibus tempus non perdendum. Verba multis sed e poscis bene. And that is, time should not be wasted on fools and talkatives. Words from many, but from few are good. Right on. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That again is just the way I believe the brain actually functions. A lot of it is kind of like computer based because they're kind of easy ways to conceptualize how our brains actually retrieve information, bring it back, and then how we tend to process it. Um, sure, I understand that quantum gates are supposed to be reversible, but again, you can figure out the cause of the effect from your calls from if you really like self-reflect. And we are just about 21 minutes in. I am feeling called to kind of like cut it short right here. My next video is most likely going to start on probably, let's go ahead and just say the magnum opus, um, the microcosmic orbit, and maybe the sacred secretion. All right, so again, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. All I try to ask, stay curious and clamber towards truth. All right, love and peace forever.